Hello and welcome to the Anomaly Project, The Agenda, the show where we look ahead to our upcoming episode. I'm Marcus Lowth, and joining me as he does every week is Steve Mera. Now, Steve, this week we're going to be speaking to GERARD Pratt. We're looking at out-of-body experiences, astral projection. It's going to be a really fascinating show, I think.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it because I know Gerard works in certain areas like I do, especially
Yeah, yeah,
regard communications, circles, seances, even C5, which I wasn't aware of actually initially. But of course, he's got a new book out, which has
yeah,
just
yeah.
come out, which is This Little Wonder. And I can't say it's actually little, actually, because it's actually really good pricing compared to the size it is. But it's an actual work of art, but the information is incredible, and it'll take you down a road
Mm,
which
mm.
is just suitable for me and probably many of other readers because UFOs, the
Yeah, yeah.
jinn,
Mm.
paranormal, supernatural, non-human intelligence entities, you name it, it's all in this book. And this is real credible stuff as well, which is fascinating. And it's a bit of a it's not just a personal journey, but there's a lot of details in there. And I think it's going to be fascinating talking with Jared about that. I
Yeah.
think he's probably working on further books as well, but it'll be a fascinating talk for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's loads of things I want to ask him, to be honest with you, because I've had an out of body experience, only a very short one. But what I'd really like to speak to him about is because, as you say, in that book, he's speaking about non-human intelligences, otherworldly entities, and in the wake of that out of body experience that I had, I look at it differently now. But at the time, I had a really intense dream, and I mean the most intense dream I've ever had.
Mm.
And essentially, I was found myself lying on my bedroom floor. My bed was there. Now I can't see whether I was in the bed or not, but there was an entity grabbing my foot. My foot was in the air and it was grabbing at it. And it was really strange. The more I felt terrified. The more I looked at the entity, even though I was staring straight at it, I couldn't see any type of face. I just couldn't
Yeah.
see it. I don't know why. That it felt like went on forever, maybe a couple of seconds. And I remember physically being unable to wake up almost. It was strange. When I did wake up, I just dusted it off as a dream. However, when I started researching astral projection and people say, when you go into that realm, there are other entities there and they might want to come back with you and
It
stuff. And it made
really
me
is.
wonder whether that's what
Yeah.
I experienced, because I also
It's
experienced strange, intense
crazy.
dreams of other nature after that. And I also started experiencing voices after that, not,
Yeah.
not hearing voices, but when I was waking up, I could hear conversations that just weren't there. So I'd love to get his thoughts on that because I suspect I've had many of the same
Yeah, I
experiences,
would have think so. I
more so.
mean, when you talk about enhanced consciousness, there's ways of
Mm.
getting there, and out of body experiences,
Yeah.
astral projection, astral travel, remote viewing, near-death experiences, out of body, you name it. But your enhanced consciousness opens a doorway
Mm.
to the best way I can describe it is an encyclopedia of strange beings and entities
Yeah.
because that's exactly what it is. Because there is no baseline model of an entity. They vary dramatically from spiritual to non-human intelligences to things that look ancient. Some
Mm.
look wonderful and angelic, some not so good,
Yeah.
but it's like another wet realm of wonder which you've tapped us into a source. But sometimes by doing that, you can actually leave the door open just a little bit
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
they show an interest in you as well because they might be thinking like us, our realm,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
thinking, wow, this is great, we're in communications with somebody who's actually a living human being, on planet Earth. And I think that kind of works both ways sometimes, communications.
It could do. I mean, I'd like to get his opinion on what the actual realm is. Is it just another dimension? Is it another realm of existence? Is it, for want of a better phrase, heaven? I mean, and also, I mean, are we talking? Can we look forward or back in time on this? Because around the same time I was doing I wasn't doing out of body, but I was experimenting essentially with consciousness and whether you can put yourself into trances, where you can foresee things, etc., etc. And one night I was doing this, and I was one of the most focused I've ever been, actually. And I was focused on the road that's down there. Basically, it's the main road that runs all the way through to Doncaster city centre, one way or another, and it goes all the way right through to the next city, all the way through all the villages. And I was just concentrating on that road and trying to imagine what it must have looked like and blah blah blah. And then out of nowhere, it was really strange. This I wasn't asleep, but I wasn't awake, but I could just this vision. of what this road looked like. It was the same rough kind of structure, but obviously, there wasn't really any buildings. It was all covered in trees everywhere, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And I've never forgotten that vision. And it makes me think, is that something that I've just imagined, or was I dreaming, or was it a little flash? When I was in that other realm for a few seconds. So I'd love to get his thoughts on that because I think it's
Yeah,
more than just leaving your body.
I think so. I think we're totally unaware, really, of our human capabilities, to
Oh
be
yeah.
honest with you. And I think many of our viewers will recognize and connect with when we talk about those unusual glitches where you think reality's changed or
Mm-hmm.
you've had some type of weird dream which seems more than than
Yeah.
normal. Sometimes when there's a crossover, when you think that you're having some type of interaction in your bedroom, you've woken up, there's something there, or you feel something. But some people will argue that, oh, hypnagogic states might cause those type of incidents. But to be honest with you, statistically speaking, I'm just not going with it. I mean, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
behavioral psychologist, so and I would actually say the evidence points to there's something else as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, and one more thing to mention while all this was going on, and I've not experienced this since I was a young child, and even that was only in a small window, which makes me think, and we'll leave that there. I mean, that could have been something else that was going on.
Mm.
But during that period, sometimes I'd fall asleep with everyone on the chair or on the settee or whatever, downstairs late at night, and I'd wake up and I'd feel absolutely terrified, and I mean terrified, not just a bit
Yeah,
scared to the point where I'm thinking, do I stay here and just hope whatever's there doesn't see me, or do I run? And invariably, I would run, and I mean run
yeah,
all the way
yeah.
upstairs. And I only ever had that as a young kid when I was, I know, but between ages of 6 and 11. Looking back, I felt absolutely terrified a lot of the time in the old house I used to live at. And so it does make me wonder again whether that, like you said about opening a door, whether there's something there during that period of time. I don't really get this anymore. Although we've had a few things happen in the house over the last few months. I don't know whether that's because
Mm.
I'm working on this sort of stuff. But yeah, I'd like to get his thoughts on things like that because, like you say, it makes you think that there is some kind of interaction going on. It's not just in the mind.
No, it's not. It's not all in the mind. Absolutely. I mean, what about shared experiences? There are
Yeah, yeah.
people sometimes that have which are with these individuals, and they have those experiences. I mean, I remember when the first séance I attended many, many years ago,
Hmm.
and we had some movement of items which were on the table.
Yeah.
And I totally freaked, to be honest. I ran for it, because it was totally unexpected to me. But you know what? That the raising of the bar happens the more you're involved in these sort of studies, to the point where, you're pressing for materializations or
Yeah.
manifestations and that sort of thing. And that can also happen. That can also take place. It's it's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people just a bit too fearful to go down that path because it's just a fear of the unknown. But you know what? I think it's part of life. It's all interconnected. I mean, ultimately, we are all going to find out one day.
Oh yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
so why fear it? Don't I wouldn't say fear the unknown because it's a matter of learning.
Hmm.
And there's lots of strange things that people are experiencing. People have had these out of body experiences. It's not something new. It's
Oh
ancient,
no.
in
No,
fact, isn't
yeah. I
it?
mean, there's accounts obviously going back as long as there's been any kind of documentation, you can find little snippets of people who said they could see their own body. I mean, it can happen as well. You can put yourself in there, in a trance, for want of a better word. It can happen just without you realizing it, particularly when you're asleep. But it can also happen in terms, if people are being tortured, they've told accounts of literally looking down.
Disassociation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And it's more than just putting yourself into a trance. You've literally left the body. And there's loads
yeah,
of these documented. And I think a lot of them came out of the Third Reich camps in World War II. And I know the Japanese, I think it was Unit 731. They were
yeah, yeah,
they were
yeah.
really doing some
They would do
grim
some weird,
stuff.
wacky stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So it makes you wonder
yeah.
whether those experiments might have maybe carried on
Well,
behind closed
do
doors,
you know what? I wouldn't surprise me. They even started doing studies into trying to capture the soul or spirit in a
Yes.
containment, some type of containment.
Hmm.
Um, But you are right. I mean, we've got incidents where there is that disassociation through trauma,
Hmm. Hmm.
but then there is also controlled states.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
controlled state is very similar to kind of also tapping into the source of remote viewing as well. And we
Yeah.
know that's been very successful in the past because, we've got documented history and reports of these remote viewing sessions from very important military backgrounds,
Mm.
operations, experiments, establishments, and the money that's been spent in them is tremendous. So that there's obviously something to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it'd be interesting to get his thoughts on Jed's thoughts on what the difference is between astral projection and remote viewing. Because remote viewing, generally, typically speaking, I'm sure everybody knows, but you get coordinates or you choose coordinates and you focus on them.
Yeah.
Again, I've messed around, for want of a better phrase, with this. It was just a bizarre old abandoned factory in Sheffield, and
Yes.
concentrate, and I don't do this anymore, and I'd certainly like to learn properly. But I can never do it. I can never get something. And again, all of a sudden, I just had a vision of just being inside this huge control tower, like from the inside. And it made me think, wow. And it didn't feel like I'd left my body, but it did feel like I was seeing this. And you're fully awake, you're not in a trance or anything. So I'd like to get his thoughts on that because, we all know about Ingo Swan, for example, and he's gone to Jupiter,
Yeah.
he's gone to the moon and things of that nature. So, I mean, I'd like to see, is there a difference? I mean, between astral projection and remote viewing? I don't know.
I think there's a very thin line between some of them. I mean, you got different references. Astral projection and astral travel, pretty much the same thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But you've got these out of body experiences, sometimes purely done accidental or unaware of,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes through trauma. People have been had those when they've been had bad injuries, things like that. Which, if it goes one further, you're almost having a near-death experience, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
yeah.
But I think it's all really all in the same pot. And we're looking at a variety of different things that can happen in this pot. I'm calling them different names. But what is interesting is that there seems to be a natural process, such as the near-death experience. There
Mm.
is a controlled way of doing this through out of body, forced out of body. You can apparently learn
Oh yeah,
about
yeah,
how to do
absolutely.
this.
Yeah, yeah. It's
There's a
just a case of.
mechanism.
I'm saying it's just a case. I mean, it is just a case of using your own mind through concentration to put yourself in another state. And I'm not saying people should be buggering about with this lightly either, though, because
No,
it's something that you really need to speak to people who know what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, when I was doing this kind of thing, I was in touch with people that were well clued up, and yeah, it's certainly something that I would probably like to get back to at some point and really experiment with it because it is
yeah.
interesting. And
There
like
are
you said,
some,
I
there are
mean,
some, there are some that never have those type of experiences, of course.
yeah, I mean,
But
but
then, does that make a difference? I mean, does that mean that people that can and do have those experiences
I
are a
think
little bit
so.
more intuitive?
Well, no, I
I
mean,
don't know.
I'm not sure. I
Mm,
think there's a few things here. I think, like we've spoken to a few researchers over the course of the months we've been going, and
mm.
they've basically said the same thing. You've got some people who are naturally gifted for this kind of thing. Others they have to learn it, and the more you learn, the more it becomes easy. But I think some people just aren't interested. Maybe the power of belief in not believing in things is
That's
just
the
as powerful as
problem.
belief, and
That's
so
the
that maybe
problem.
blocks them off. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I suspect that most human minds are the same. Essentially, they were the same. As unique as we all are. The basics of how we
True.
work. So I
Yeah.
would suspect that anybody can learn to do this. Now, whether
I would have
that's
thought
a case of
so.
belief
I
or I
think
don't
I
know.
think it's been blocked by social conditioning over years.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think when we go back in time, we all had this ability, and it was more common. It was just a natural extra sense that we could tap into. We
Hmm.
could, project ourselves out of the living state of the into the ethereal world,
Hmm.
interact with different deities and communications. I think we did this more commonly. And what we're trying to do now is learn something really old as opposed from something new. But I do think that through social conditioning and never being told or taught, that it slowly eliminates. People don't even go down that path because they don't even think about doing it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with that. And I think another thing to bear in mind is it's like we kind of live complete. I know it sounds really silly to say that, but we live completely different to how we did just a few hundred years ago. I mean,
Mm.
right now we're advised or told that you should go to bed say at midnight and get up at 8 o'clock. You should have eight
Yeah,
solid hours sleep. But
yeah,
back
yeah.
in the day, people were going to bed, they were waking up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, having 2 or 3 hours going about the daily business, chores, even just reading. And then they go back to bed at 6, 7 o'clock and sleep
Yeah,
till and so that's supposed to be the human body's natural way of
it,
dealing with
it
sleep,
it
not
does.
eight
We're not
solid
we're not
hours.
geared to sort of do the long length of.
No, it's
or
just to fit in with
daylight
nine to
beings.
five, isn't it? That's the only
Yeah,
reason we're told that. So
yeah, we've been social conditioned,
yeah,
and I think we've just lost touch
but it is.
with the fundamental ourselves. Of course, we're living in a completely different environment now, full of
Mm,
poisons, breathing it in, drinking
yeah,
it,
yeah.
eating it. Even that back then might have been significantly different. Having more, less chemicals and poisons in the body
Hmm.
might actually have assisted as well. So I think it's a time of change. But the thing is that it hasn't disappeared. It's actually that very much talks about consciousness now, isn't it? And
Oh
including
yeah.
all these different areas of studies.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and we've said it for a while, as of many, many, many other researchers, that consciousness is one of the crucial things that we need to
Almost
understand.
thing.
I mean, modern science and mainstream science will say consciousness comes from within, but there's more and more increasing
Mm,
evidence to suggest that
I
that's
know.
not the case.
No.
And the head is, or the mind, should I say, is almost like a radio that's taking in all this
We
information.
don't even
You've
know
got
where
to
memory
interact with it.
lies. Yeah,
No,
well,
exactly.
science wants to say, oh, it's in this part of the brain at the back or whatever. Oh, memory. Okay. So what happens when people have been significantly injured during the Second World War,
Hmm.
where stepped on mines and things, and they're literally missing this side of their head, but they're alive and they recover, but this side of the brain has been damaged. But luckily, we've got two sides of the brain, so it kind of went over and started operating on this side. They still had memory.
Yeah.
But then what about those that had damage to this side of the brain and it still had memory? Well, hang on a second. It can't just be in one place in the brain. And is it even a physical place?
Mm.
Because when we pass over or into the spirit world, there's memory.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. No,
I
I
just,
agree. I mean, it's like again, it's like you said, it's almost like I know there's the Akashic record, and we all know what that is, but it does make you wonder. Like, we talk about the cloud in terms of like putting files up there, and everyone does that now, but it's almost like there is kind of a cloud there, and it
yeah.
makes you think, well, who can access that? Perhaps we all can. People who have dreams. Like we spoke about it before about recurring dreams. Now, is that from a past life, or have you somehow just kind of accessed that from the Akashic
Somewhere else.
record? But I
Well, yeah.
mean, dreaming itself, I mean, the fact that sleep and in and out of sleep and the consciousness of the brain while you're sleeping, again, it's something that me and Caroline McKendy Gibson were speaking about, of actually monitoring brain patterns, not only when people are asleep, but when they have these paranormal experiences, when they're in touch with spirit, and see what's going on in there, because I think it'd be absolutely
Well,
fascinating.
there's been some experiments. I mean, we
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
there's been looks on brain, what's going on with the brain when chi is
Mm-hmm,
obtained,
mm-hmm.
and used, and literally parts of the brain light up,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is very unusual during chi. Uh, you got to also consider is why is the brain more active at night when we're sleeping than it is during the day? You'd think it'd be the other way around because of the functions and
Mm-hmm,
it's dealing with the body, having to move and coordinate and think and do all these things,
mm.
and yet we're only sleeping, we're lying in one position, we're lying down, we're resting. The body's not doing a lot, and yet the brain goes into superdrive. What is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. I mean, I know. Again, mainstream science will say, "Well, it's sorting out the memories of the day and blah blah blah," and maybe it is in one way. But like you
No.
say, I mean, I think it was Colin Wilson who wrote about this, and he was talking about, he was saying that the amount of things that humans do when you're on autopilot on a robotic state, and that can be everything from getting up, making your cup of tea, getting washed, dressed, blah blah blah. You have no memory doing those things, not really. You just
No,
do it
we do have a
because
section. It's
yeah,
called
exactly.
schemas. The
Yeah,
schemas. I mean, and I'll give you a prime example of that. People that drive a vehicle that uses gears,
yes.
when they're driving down the road, they don't even recall changing gear.
No, exactly. No.
Because what happens is there's a part of the memory, it's called schema, which does it automatically, and you're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
even consciously aware of you doing it. So I can understand there's this area, this buffer that keeps this information in there,
Hmm.
so that you don't even have to think about changing gear anymore. It'll just do it.
Yeah,
You'll
that's
do it
right.
automatically with no consciousness of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a simple act as breathing. I mean, you don't sit there and think, oh, I better take a
No,
breath in, take a
it'd
breath
be an
out.
awful that to think about it, wouldn't it? I
Exactly.
know.
Yeah, it's just so what, but yeah, it does make sense at night that like I mean, I've said this a couple of times, so I'm not going into details. But in dreams, do we go to other dimensions? Do we latch onto other versions of ourselves? Do we go to the astral plane? There's something about dreams that I know people have studied these, and I know what people say. Dreams are just your own memories, and sometimes maybe they are. For example, you have a dream of something, oh, that's because I did that day. That's why I've dreamt that.
Yeah,
But there are other dreams where you wake up and I can't really describe this. I know people wake up and say, "Oh, that felt so real," but that's the only way you can describe it, and it
yeah,
stays
it's a
with
little
you.
bit
It stays
unusual,
with you.
more than the
Yeah,
normal. I
like
want
an
to ask you a
unsettling
question.
feeling.
Ask you a question though, because when you've had these out of body type experiences, astral projection. Are you just looking through your eyes, or do you actually look down and see an ethereal body?
It's
Your
funny.
hand, your
It's
arm.
funny you say that, right? I was thinking about this today. I really was. When I was thinking about that, are we going to other realms and are you hitching a ride with another version of yourself? And more often than not, I mean, I'm not talking about, I've only really had one out of body experience and it was very short and it kind of spooked me a bit, to be honest.
Mm.
But I would like to get into that more. But in terms of dreams, though, I was thinking, yeah, you're right. You don't actually, you don't see your hands, you don't look down and see your body. Now,
Just
sometimes
the eyes
you might
thing.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most of the time you're just looking outwards. So, yeah, I was thinking about that. And in terms of the out of body thing, no, I don't think I did. I mean, to be honest with you, I just remember, being in the front in the living room, my wife and son were watching TV, and I was almost, I wouldn't say crouched, but I was almost kind of like not laying down, but kind of floating is the only way I can describe it. But just a short distance from the floor, and yeah, I can't remember actually seeing any part of myself, just what I could
Right.
actually
So,
see.
so it's like your consciousness has gone wandering
Yeah, exactly,
somewhere,
and that's
rather than because there are people that say, "Look, that I've seen an ethereal body."
yeah,
So there is obviously a difference between maybe your consciousness can leave, and it's not in the sense that all you're doing is you're seeing as you're looking around. There's
yeah.
consciousness, there's memory, there's control of where you're going to look at or where the direction you're going in, but not in an ethereal body in a sense of speaking.
Yeah, and
So there may
perhaps
be
some
layers, different layers to this.
just gonna say, I mean, that's exactly what I was just gonna say. I mean, perhaps sometimes, like for example, if when we dream or when we leave our body or when we astral project, we go into this other realm. Then if spirits are inhabiting that, or what we would interpret as spirits are inhabiting that
Mm.
realm, well, sometimes they need to manifest in a body. Whether it's just literally a manifestation or physical body, and so perhaps depending on where you are, what level you're at, or what your subconscious is trying to achieve. Perhaps maybe sometimes you do manifest a body in that other plane.
Oh
But
yeah.
no, I think, generally speaking, and from people I've spoken to as well, I would say you're just looking outward. I don't think you see any body.
That's a bit different then because if you look at some of these cases of remote viewers, when the Lockerbie crash was remote viewed,
Yes.
now actually on the aisle, just before the plane exploded, there was another person they recognised who was another remote viewer from another country. And they
All right.
recognised it,
So
and somehow they know that each other, but they can see he saw a physical person of,
it'd be
of,
interesting to
of
know whether
themselves.
they could see themselves or just the other remote
Apparently,
viewer.
they knew. He looked at this guy and he said, "He's remote viewing this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
not English. He's not all American looking. He's remote viewing this." And it's as if he looked at him and realized the same thing that, "Oh, you're remote viewing this."
So it'd be
Sort of
interesting
a
to know
thing.
whether so if remote viewer A can see B and B can see A, it'd be interesting to see whether A can see
Yeah,
himself
I
or whether
know.
he can only see
That's
the
the
other
thing.
remote viewer. The
Yeah.
Lockerbie thing though is really interesting, and I read these transcripts of this, and I found that really credible because, and I know you can make this sort of stuff up, I know that, but one of the people he was speaking about, he used to say being on the plane and feeling at the same time intense awful heat, the explosion, and the absolute freezing nature of being that high up in the sky. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, that's a real credible description, actually.
That's
You know,
sensory. That's sensory. You're
yeah.
feeling.
But that was fascinating. Those remote viewing to the Lockerbie thing, they really, really
Well,
interesting.
when you have dreams, some in-depth dreams, you do feel pain. You feel the cold, you feel the heat, you feel wind, you feel all sorts of different things. But how do you feel them if they're not? Because they've got to be the electrical impulses generated in the brain which causes those feelings,
Mm.
because that's what pain is and all these
Yeah,
other
yeah.
things.
It's
The
almost
hairs on your arm, give a sensation. But people have reported this in dreams, and it's you think, okay, so there's a bit more to the the non-physicality of experiencing physical things. Like we think they're physical, but it's
yeah.
actually electrical impulses, which are non-physical going on in dreams, aren't they?
Well, I suppose if you're having again, I'm just thinking on the fly here, but if you're having an out of body experience or a lucid dream or whatever, you obviously still connect. And I know they describe it as a silver thread, but you're still connected to your body, so your mind is still connected to your body in some way. So
Mm.
perhaps, like you say, if somebody places, I don't know, a lit match on your hand in your dream, your brain's going to process that, your consciousness, and perhaps that just manifests on your physical body in that other realm, and that shows that connection. again, it's sort of thing you'd need to really study and case
There's
after case
even
after
what these
case. But
levels of even conscious, subconscious,
yeah,
unconscious. Because we know we can bring out people by certain smells and scents. We can bring them out. They can
yeah.
suddenly, what's that smell sort of thing, and they're suddenly awake. You can't do that to unconscious people. So there's obviously different layers to that as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, again, I just think the more we get into consciousness and what it actually is, and it is moving in the right direction. I do think people, I know it drives like Anthony Pete crazy, for example, because he's been talking about this for years, but it
Yeah,
is coming more and more to the
it really
surface
is. Yeah,
now.
it's
Uh,
fascinating, isn't it?
yeah,
It
it is, and
really
the
is.
fact that the mainstream are even just contemplating this, because you've got your humanists or whatever, and I say, this is your one life, and once you're dead, you're a piece of meat, you're done, that's it, forget about it. And I just think, well, that's just as stupid as believing in absolutely everything that you're told. Do you know what I
It
mean?
is
So,
absolutely.
and I think
It's.
science is starting to show us that we don't really know what
I
to do.
really do think we still are massive away from trying to understand us, let
Oh yeah,
alone the external world and the things that we might not even experience. Just trying to understand us is a beyond a lifetimes of study.
oh
But
yeah,
it'll be interesting to talk with Jared about what he's personally experienced because things have started some years back, and of
mm-hmm.
course he's grown into these experiences. Some people just go, "Oh no, I don't like that. I'm moving
Yeah,
away," but he hasn't, and he's actually grabbed hold of it with two hands, and it's led him into multiple different factions of dealing with things, be it the UFO phenomena and NHI, the supernatural, the paranormal,
mm-hmm.
seances, astral projection, and out of body experiences. It seems all interlinked somehow, but he's really gone for it, hasn't he? And
Oh
he
yeah.
has probably learned quite a bit, so it's going to be fascinating to talk with him about what he's experienced over the years.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, we're not just talking about like, as you know, we're not just talking about floating above your body in your bedroom. I mean, the guy in the book he speaks about going over the Atlantic Ocean and literally as you would see the sea from a plane, below him and just speeding along. And he used to live in Africa as a kid as well for a time, and he found himself 1 minute he was at home, next minute and he was back where he used to live.
Yeah, that's it.
So
The
he's really
process.
looked into this, like you
Yeah,
say.
that process of traversity is seems to be multiple ways. I mean, people have said, "Look, you know what? I felt myself moving down the street as if like I was walking."
Mm-hmm.
People have said I was moving through the sky fast,
Yeah, yeah.
and others have said like, "Well, I think of a place and I'm there."
Mm,
So it's
yeah.
like, wow. I mean, there's no limitations here. But I do remember, there's been many times over the years, documentations from spirit communications all over the world saying spirits fill the skies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much, so a common reference that this seems to be. And if that is the case, then, we're everywhere, but we're just privy not to know things. We're only privy to understand what we hear on this realm.
Hmm.
But once we open that door a little, we expand our consciousness, and it does seem to be consciousness, doesn't it?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think even things like you say about spirits and the spirit world or the astral plane or whatever you want to call it. I mean, to me, that's where you've almost got the origins of heaven. I know that people think
Yeah.
of the heavens and from the sky and blah blah blah, and that's probably some truth in that too. But the fact that if you're interacting with people that were once of this world and now you only see them in this realm, and again, it's just evidence to me that we've kind of humanity has experienced this for as long as humanity's
I
been
think
here,
so.
really.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think it definitely does. It is the origins of the beyond heaven as we would understand it. That
yeah. It's
that's
just
where you
such a
go when
shame
you
that
die.
it's a shame that it's such a taboo subject now in the
Yeah.
21st century. It's like we've gone backwards, But wouldn't it be good? I mean, we just can't see that in archaeology. We can go and dig up bones
Hmm, hmm.
and tell you how old they were or how they lived or maybe what they ate and stuff like that. But we can't tell you about the spirituality. We can't tell you what consciousness they had and
Yeah.
what they were capable. We could never get that. It's like it's shame. It's like it's lost.
I think
You
the thing
know?
is as well. I think what a lot of people do is they interpret it from a modern perspective. I mean, ancient Egypt's a good example. I mean,
Yeah.
you can clearly see, their belief in an afterlife and preparations for such, and to them that was real. But it's just dismissed as just it's just this, it's just folklore, it's just stories. But that, like you say, is a glimpse into
Yeah.
consciousness and how they viewed the world and the spiritual nature.
they mixed the two together. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah.
all Egyptian history is full of spiritual and humanistic. It's like mixed together. There's no divide,
Mm.
where we completely have a divide between spirit and heaven and us here on planet Earth in the physical sense. But to them, they're not. To them, their world consisted of both. And
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's just that. It's been a very stronger divide over the years as we've progressed humanity, and it's divided us, I suppose, probably more. But it's the same for many cultures, though, around the world. They had that connection.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. I
half of
think
them were in the spirit, in a sense, communicating, talking with the deities, walked along with them.
yeah,
It's
I
just,
mean, it's like you say, the science is mixed as well. Like you say, there's no divide. And a good example of that is astronomy and astrology, which were not
yes,
separate back in the day. They were
that's
all
right.
one thing. Even like medical practice and alchemy and stuff, they kind of, at some point, partly through the church, partly through intellectualism, which is not a bad
Yeah,
thing, but it can be, they were just separated out.
separated. Yeah,
And yeah, I think we're kind of, I won't say we're coming back, but I think there's more and more people that are kind of realizing, you don't have to choose one side or the other. These things
no.
can coexist. So,
Yes, I do agree. I think so. And some people are just lucky enough to be able to tap that source and have those experiences when others might never have them,
hmm.
But it doesn't mean you can't have them. You've got to expand your mind and accept the fact that why not try, you
Oh yeah,
know?
yeah,
I mean,
no,
if you don't look, you don't see. It's as
yeah,
simple as that, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think some people have no interest, and that's fair enough. But I do think belief or lack thereof, I don't
Yeah.
mean blind belief is in the religious sense, or even in some parts of the UFO community where everything's aliens. I don't mean that kind of belief, just that the belief in the possibility, that these things could be real, because there's certainly more evidence than people are wanting to
Well,
believe.
people are quite happy to believe in the Bible, but the Bible says that spirits exist.
Absolutely.
And it also says when you're going to encounter spirits is to test them. Job 4,
Yeah,
it says,
yeah,
test the spirits. And why is he saying test the spirits? Because there's more than just spirits in that domain.
yeah.
There's other things.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
And that's why he's saying that test the spirits, because they might come through and say, "Oh, I'm a spirit and stuff, this, that, and the other." But are they? You got to test them, and I think that's why it says. I mean, if it says it in the Bible, people say, "Oh no, I don't believe in that. I believe in the Bible." Well, the Bible says it.
Yeah,
It's there,
absolutely. Yeah.
So it's nothing new. It's something ancient, really.
Yeah, I think, and it goes back to the absolute premise of what the Anomaly project started from, is that these things are all connected.
All
And
connected.
the Bible, like you say, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that there is life after death. Well, that means that there's spirits, that means there's ghosts, and all these other things. And then you can't say, well, this is all there is. And so,
It's all
yeah, I
there.
think it needs to all come together and be viewed from a completely different perspective from how we've been viewing it for
Totally
hundreds of
agree.
years.
I totally agree, buddy. I really
Yeah,
do.
I think
You
we'll
know.
get there. We'll get there at some point. We shall see. But look, it's going to be an amazing chat with Jed. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you are, Steve.
I really am looking forward to it. Yeah, I
Excellent
really am.
stuff. And it's been a great chat again with you tonight. So thank you for that.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
joining me as always. And we'll see you guys on Friday for the show. Make sure, thank you for watching this. And obviously, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you check out the Anomaly Project podcast.com for news, articles, and information. And follow us on social media. Until next time, though, goodbye and take care.